back, everybody, to our next phase of our annual conference, Doing Business Brilliantly. Can I first of all say thank you very much indeed to all of our workshop presenters for the excellent work that they've done, that range of workshops which we talked about beforehand. Hope all the participants got a lot from it. And also our exhibitors. If you go down to the exhibitor stage, exhibitor element on Hop-In, you can go down to the exhibitors, see all the exhibitors, look at the video of what they put out, and if you go down a bit, you can register your interest as well. So make sure you use that interactive feature. So look at the video, if it appeals to you, register your interest, and the exhibitor will get back to you. Okay, so moving on now, we're into a really interesting bit, hopefully insightful, bearing in mind what Sam was saying about what insight was, insightful discussion about how you do business brilliantly, and we've collected an audience, a group of 4 fantastic business people from the Swindon and Wiltshire area. We have 3 of them in the studio with us in the BCC, and Laura, who's online and is going to join us remotely, having done a workshop. So let's just say who we've got with us then. We've got a group of people who do all sorts of different things. We've got Laura Ward, freshman delivering a workshop, Hayley Lambert, outside here, Sam Dharmasiri, and Rob Hibberd. And in a minute, they're just going to introduce themselves, say a little bit about them so you know who they are and what they're about, and then we're going to have a conversation about how we do business brilliantly in Swindon and Wiltshire. So, Rob, will you start off and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Paddy. Good morning, everybody. I am Rob Hibberd, and I am the Managing Director of Nationwide Engineering Group, and we are a national principal civil engineering contractor, and we build in rail, highways, airports, and major business parks and steel portal frames and commercial developments. And what we embarked on about 4 years ago, as what started as a R&D project, was to start putting graphene and nanomaterial technology into concrete to see if we could lower the CO2 emissions of concrete, which many people aren't aware that after water, concrete is the most widely used substance on Earth, and after the petrochemical industry is the 3rd largest CO2 polluter on the planet, counting for around about 12% of global pollution. And that's what our sort of journey then crossed with the LEP, and our business has grown for the last 4 years with concreting.
Fantastic, Rob. Thank you very much indeed. And I love the principle behind it and the effect it's going to have. It's excellent. It's great. Good stuff. So, Hayley, you tell us about different perspective, different size, really interesting business.
Hi, I'm Hayley, and I have a zero waste shop called Packaging Not Included in Marlborough in Wiltshire. And so the idea of my shop is that people come and buy their groceries with no packaging. So we have a range of dried foods, and we have some local products, and we have cleaning products. Lots of things are delivered to us in reusable containers, so we have a circular system. And the idea is to raise awareness around the climate crisis and plastic pollution and other issues, but also to engage with our local community and to encourage people to take action and be empowered to make changes in their life in order to reduce their personal impacts and carbon footprint. So it's a very small business. It's just myself and one employee, and we just have one shop, so it's very micro, but we feel like we're engaged in our local community, so that's what we're doing.
And that community link's really important too, isn't it? It also gives you a base for other things to do as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Excellent. That's great, thank you. Okay, Sam, tell us about you.
Hi there. Hi, Paddy. So my name is Sam Dharmasiri. I'm the CEO of CO365. We formed 2 years ago. Prior to that, I've been in the business application consulting space for about 20 years. I've built and sold 3 businesses in that time, and the last one we built to around about 550 people. We sold that in 2018. What we did with SEER, though, was to look at that business and see how we could make it more productive, more efficient if we started from the ground up. With that, we formed SEER. We created a software application that reduces the need for as many consultants to deliver those engagements we had in the past. We licensed that to to consultancy houses around the world. We've got operations now in Australia, New Zealand, US, just opened up in Brazil, and we have an offshore team in Sri Lanka. But ultimately, we're headquartered, and most of our people are in Swindon.
Excellent, great stuff. So again, I was interested in the fact you've had that history experience of opening and running and selling businesses, but actually learning from doing that to have a different concept and approach to doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. Okay, we'll come back to that then. So Laura, you're online, having done our workshop. I hope you can hear us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what gets you going.
Great. Well, hi everyone. So yes, as Paddy said, I'm Laura. I am speaking to you from Tisbury in Wiltshire, which is where we run the UK's leading luxury tennis apparel brand for women. It's called Exeat. We are an award-winning global brand, so we've just won Global Startup of the Year, which is exciting. And we are available in over 90 markets, and our distribution channels are typically e-commerce, so we're an e-com fashion brand, but we also do some wholesale in markets as well. And for anyone joining who doesn't play tennis, just to let you know, tennis is the fastest growing sport in the world. There are over 100 million players globally. The apparel market is valued at 15 billion, so it's a really exciting space to play in. And we occupy a unique corner of that space because the tennis apparel market is dominated by mass market sports brands who do a great job of sort of collections year on year, but typically, obviously, with a lower price product, you're going to be seeing cheaper materials, definitely unsustainable materials, which we're not a fan of. Sometimes the garments aren't fit optimized, and sometimes they're not actually suitable to play in. So Exeat is the antithesis of that. We specialize in beautifully made, high quality, tailored to fit tennis apparel for women that is all made from pioneering sustainable fabric. So anything that's recycled. So we recycle ocean plastics, we recycle textiles destined for landfill, but we're also working in biodegradable yarns as well. And that's been quite appealing to our customer because, interestingly, tennis as a sport has one of the most affluent demographics in sport. So a luxury British tennis brand has been appealing and has worked for them.
That's brilliant, excellent. Thank you very much. So it's interesting. We've got some quite common themes about what we're doing, but we've also got some issues where we've got difference in size, we've got difference in the types of sectors we're in. So just let's get started on a discussion then. So from your perspective, how important is it for a business to have a novel idea? Sam,
I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think you can have an idea that's traditional, but you can do it better. So it's great to have novel, groundbreaking ideas, but it's not always feasible. But I think you can take an existing business idea and make it better.
Yeah, and by making it better, you make it more efficient?
More efficient, more productive, with a different culture. It is interesting to work with what were our competitors, but also understanding how they work. You can see that even all the same thing, people approach it differently. So you can do it.
Yeah.
I'd say for us, it's almost we have the opposite to a novel idea because what we're doing is almost going back in time and allowing people to shop in a way that they may have done years ago. And although it may seem novel in the moment, it's not a new way of doing things. And I think one of the things that people really love about going into an independent local business, whether it's my zero waste shop or whether it's the record shop near me that Rob and I were talking about before we started, is going in and actually having that experience of being in something that is really unique and is a one-off, and you are actually having a personal interaction with that person. So sometimes I think old ways are almost a nicer way to do things.
Yeah, good.
I think, Paddy, as well, that because this is partly about SMEs as well, is that we find in our civil engineering and construction world, we're dealing with a lot of major clients, like National Highways, Network Rail, people like that. And they try to promote that they're being really dynamic and forward thinking, but they're actually really slow. Their systems slow them down. So they can't be innovative and they can't be dynamic and they can't react quickly, that SMEs can. So depending on what your narrative is and what you're trying to demonstrate, it's the smaller companies that will drive the innovation, prove it works, and then the larger corporates will follow.
And either take over the SMEs or
Absolutely, or at least if they're adopting the correct ethos. So say like with your ethos and what you're starting, if you can get the larger supermarkets to adopt even part of your ethos and what you're doing, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's happening.
So Laura, from your point of view, novel idea?
Yeah, so from our point of view, obviously making tennis apparel is not a novel idea, but where we were able to build the value into that is where we positioned ourselves in the market, and our unique selling points which was, you know, yeah, sure, we're gonna make it we're gonna make tennis apparel, but let's make it sustainable, let's make it luxurious. And that would be my advice to any SME, because we went into the market and we've taken on Nike and Adidas, you know, so it is that sort of classic SME story, as you were just saying. So idea can have similarities, but do try and build that value in through your USPs and your positioning within the market. That needs to be unique.
Yeah. Okay. So that potentially leads on to our next maybe line of questioning. People have touched on, you've touched on it in some of your answers. Is it, you know, what does the leader do? What does the leader of a set of an organisation have to do to get the business operating brilliantly? What's the leader's role?
I think you've got to have passion to start with, and believe in what you're doing. Set up some USPs like you've just said, and as key parameters and deliverables for your business that you can then monitor against and review.
So you've got to be focused. You've got to be focused as well. You've got to have that passion where you've got to target it. Certainly.
And then your team that you build around you are working with those same parameters, those same USPs, and that same business driver. To begin with.
Can you have your passion challenged by your team members?
Frequently, and that's what certainly how we drive our business is we don't want a lot of followers. We want innovators and people that are going to think as well for the brand and grow it.
Yeah.
So
Sam, you mentioned about the culture thing, one of the things that may be the difference.
I think a leader does define the culture, and most organisations evolve around that leadership culture. I think it's important as a leader you define what you want, and that can be different for different leaders. But I certainly believe the job of a leader is to grow people, make sure they're fulfilled in what they're doing, and listen.
This is, are you all up front? Do you all lead from the front, or have you different styles?
I'm very much hands-on because of the business being so small.
Yeah.
It's me and one member of staff. So the two of us do everything. So I'm very hands-on, very involved in everything from doing the ordering to mopping the floor. So for me, part of leadership is also not being afraid to get your hands dirty and actually, don't expect anybody else to do something that you're not prepared to do yourself. So in the shop, I'm very customer service based, and I'll be there filling up people's containers and helping them. And so I think it is important to be really engaged with the everyday operations of business as well.
And that will change your level of engagement. That will have to depend on the size of your business and where it's operating. Laura, from your point of view, hands-on, up the front, in.
Yeah, no, listen, we've been a scrappy startup for, sort of several years now, kind of in some respects, and any entrepreneur will relate to this. You're breaking new ground, you're doing things differently, and it can be tough. So as a result of that, I'm definitely hands-on. leading from the front, whilst we try and do things within our category that haven't been done before. We try and move into new markets, not necessarily having sort of huge amounts of resource, but pulling together as a team and making really cool stuff happen. So it's really important in our sort of business that I think that I am leading from the front and sort of maintaining positivity, but also for me a key part of leadership has been having a really clear vision that I can articulate to the team, that the team can input into, and then this vision becomes something that we all have ownership of, that we're all excited about, and that we all believe in and want to execute against and fight for, even on the tough days.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting that there used to be a little bit of a debate about the role of a Japanese style of leadership and management compared to a Western European style. And the Japanese one was a little bit more, you've got to know everything about the business, and you're not in an ivory tower up there. You've got to know how it operates, and you've got to have experience of it. And that came as a bit of a shock to some of people who were English or European moving into a Japanese-run business. They weren't used to that exposure. Is that, I don't know, interesting? Is that something you ascribe to? Get down. We said about get down and dirty, but knowing how the business operates, being able to pick up the various bits. Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally believe in that. We started it, with 1 or 2 people, and now about 50 people. But yeah, I like to think that I can do every aspect of the job. We also encourage everybody in the team to be able to understand each other's roles. So we don't have the luxury of having to define people to do certain jobs. So that's important. I think it keeps people motivated as well.
Yeah. So what impressed me about what you were saying there, that passion came through very strongly for me from all of you about doing it, and different sized businesses. It must be quite a challenge though, as your business grows in size and reach, and if that's what you're about, to grow your business and you're reaching different places, how that passion is still communicated to people, because you might be more of a distant figure as your business gets bigger. So let's take it a little bit step further then. Let's, your business is operating brilliantly. Is the leader's role the same as it was when you get in the business to operate brilliantly, or does it change once it is operating brilliantly? Give us a start, Rob.
Well, from our experience, yes, certainly as we've grown, it does become more difficult. As much as you'd love to get to, in my business, every site, see all the teams. So it starts to become a bit more workshops and engaging with people, and that's how we do it, is having frequent meetings, pre-COVID, parties, get-togethers, educational workshops to keep conveying the message and where the company's going and making sure that everyone's on board. Yeah. But it does get difficult. Otherwise, you could spend all day just driving from site to site.
Yeah.
So it is a challenge, but you have to work out how to grow it organically. And I'd say there's no right or wrong answer, but what has worked for us is still keeping your original ethos of why you set the company up in your aims and your goals as a core.
Yeah. So you've all mentioned something about the message, about the role of leader, getting the message across, and is it? I mean, how much do you have to invest a lot of time in doing that? Do you have to do it many times over? Yeah. What do you feel?
I would think it depends on the size of your team. Yeah. I think for me, working with a very small team, we very much both have a shared passion for sustainability in general, but more specifically personal climate action and how we can galvanise our local community to be more engaged with the climate crisis, and how we can engage our local community to want to take action. And so with both of us already having that shared passion and that shared goal, actually what's happened with PNI is that we've been able to make the daily operations have become much easier. As the business has got established, actually we now have better systems in place than we did when we first opened. So the things that took a long time at the beginning don't take as long anymore. And then that frees up a certain amount of time, and then it allows you to engage with other things. So for us, that's running community events, it's running workshops, it's having a more extensive newsletter. It's having more information on the website for people. So we've been able to develop different areas because we've almost feels like we've gained time from becoming more efficient with the running of the business. And I think you have to accept with any business when you're starting from scratch, and when you're starting, especially if it's basically just you and you're having to do everything, you can't do it all at once. You might have a vision that in X number of years you want to be doing whatever it is that you want to be doing, but you can't start with that. So you have to accept that you have a starting place, and you look at what can I do now, what's achievable, but also what's going to set a really strong foundation for my business, so that when I then want to branch into doing those other things, I know that the business is okay, and then we can do those other things. So I think it's that kind of walk before you can run thing too.
Laura, is that your experience? Is that your perception as well?
Yeah, I think, inevitably as a business grows and you're able to make key hires, right, that are going to take some of those granular tasks away from you as a leader, or, sort of the small team that you maybe started with, you're naturally getting less and less involved in the minutiae. But for me, what I find really important is that I do, having an overview, having a really good understanding of what's going on, for instance, with our exporting paperwork, all the way through to our designs, all the way through to our wholesale deals. Even though we've got individuals who work on those, I do like to have a pretty good working knowledge. But I think the most important thing, as I said, as you start getting maybe a little bit more distance from the day-to-day due to key hires, etc., is keeping everyone on track with this vision piece. So we have a vision piece that is a document that everyone's signed up to. As I said, people input into that. We have workshop sessions around vision and brand update every 6 months, where jointly we might adjust our vision a little bit, and it means that everyone sort of has accountability and skin in the game for where we're going, where we're eventually headed to, and we find that really helpful.
Yeah, good. That's good. Good message. Good point. So you've all talked about passion and about communicating that and the importance of that culture. So can you separate out your business life from your personal life? So does your philosophy of life impact on your business, or can you keep them separate? Sam?
At this stage we're in, no. I'll be lying if I said that there's a balance. The stage in the business we're at, it's still, we're only 2 years in, it still requires a lot. A team in Australia, a team in the States, so I'm frequently working time 6 till midnight. But but as long as you're happy with it and your family understand, it's I'm fortunate in the sense that I don't get stressed, so it's not so much of an issue. But if you enjoy the work you do, it's not really work, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, good. Look, Hayley,
I think for me it's more a values-based question. And so when I started Packaging Not Included, it was coming from a place of, so I used to be a music teacher, so I was doing saxophone teaching, and I wasn't enjoying my work, and I was becoming more and more concerned about the climate crisis and plastic pollution, overconsumption, and all of those things were taking up a lot of my headspace, and I was feeling like I couldn't really do anything about those things because I was teaching 60 hours a week and kind of just didn't really have time to even think about the stuff, but it was sort of what I wanted to be thinking about. So for me, the business was almost a way for me to pursue the things that were really important to me as values and as sort of lifestyle choices, if you like. I don't really like the phrase lifestyle choice, but So the business was basically a sort of extension of my values and a way to then try to communicate some of those things with other people. So for me, I feel like the business and my own values are sort of intrinsically intertwined. So again, I guess it depends slightly on the type of business that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got 30,000 SMEs in Swindon and Wiltshire who all have different balances there. So Rob, you were mentioning there about how you feel that from when you started out to now, the vision, the principles, maybe the values of what you started out there still hold good. Can you get that? Is it your personal life that's coming into this? Is your personal philosophy of life?
Yes, I think so. I think whilst the work-life balance is very, very important, but if you're an SME and trying to grow a business, like we've been discussing, you've got to have the passion in there. You've got to be driving a business that you enjoy, because as Laura said earlier, there are going to be a lot of bad days, a lot of days when you've got a load of problems facing you, and you've got to sit there and work your way through them. And if you haven't got your passion and heart and the core team around you are all sharing the same thing, they can become some really challenging times. And so I think it's really important. But then also you instill that passion in the team you build around you, and then it just becomes an enjoyable thing to grow as a company.
So you can see the team growing with you as well as we.
And I think you all then infuse off of each other's energy, and then the bad problems, you tackle them all together. So you get them all out in the open, discuss them, and then work out solutions. And work together as a team. And that's enjoyable, especially when you then solve a problem or you find a way to overcome it, and then the next problem isn't so bad. You think, oh, we've got another one. Let's sit down and have a chat again.
Great. So Laura, do you feel that with your business, your values or your beliefs in life are being delivered by your business?
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point and good way of sort of putting it, because as an entrepreneur, I'm kind of assuming that all of us, when we create these businesses, we're essentially creating our own destiny, our own worlds that we choose to operate in, because otherwise we'd work for someone else, right? So there are there are definitely the businesses definitely reflects my personal values, but also my broader values around business, i.e. that businesses have to be sustainable. Like, don't be founding a brand in the in the 2020s and not have a serious sustainability, or be serious about sustainability and have that sort of built, hardwired into your offering. So yeah, but I would also say stepping away from the business and having time carved out for your own for your own staff, family time, etc. is really important. I find I personally, because I'm so invested in the business as entrepreneurs are, sometimes you can become a bit bogged down by it. There's lots going on, and sometimes, gosh, it's just taking really taking a full Saturday off, doing something completely different that's totally unrelated to tennis, for instance, and then suddenly I'm fresh again, and I've got the answers that I didn't have 24 hours ago. So it is important just to take a step away from time to time.
I thought you were going to say there, Laura, that you'd go and something and play tennis.
I know. That is, yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's do a little bit now. Just pick up on some of the practical things about doing business brilliantly. So, how important, or do you think it's important to have a clear plan, focus on it, and stick to it? You're nodding, Sam?
Yes, in as much as I think having a plan, both financial, is really important. We have a business plan. I check it 3 or 4 times a day just to see how we're doing. I think that's super important. But also as important is to be able to change that if you feel something isn't going right. So being wedded to a plan is not great either. So you have that flexibility. But I think for me, it's understanding the financial levers within our business. So if something's changing, you can affect that and you know how to play.
Okay. You were nodding off.
I completely agree with Sam. Yeah, start with, I think, some clear plans. Because it can be a minefield otherwise. So you've got a strategy of where you're going, but be flexible enough and dynamic enough to adjust if you think that something isn't working or needs to alter. And that's the flexibility that an SME has, far better than larger corporations that just can't be as dynamic.
So decisions can be made faster.
Yes, and then implemented faster, and you can see your results faster. So it's always reflecting back on that business plan and analysing it, reviewing it.
And Laura, for example, can you think of an example where you start out with a plan and you've changed it because of circumstances?
Yeah, well, welcome to our day to day. This is, this is happening all the time. So we actually have a phrase on our office wall that says "Plan like the Navy, execute like pirates," which really sort of sums us up. So because we're operating globally, and it is that global piece, because we're in lots of different markets. Each market will have its own nuances, its own set of problems. Sort of own specific way of operating, and we don't necessarily know that before we go in. So we're often going into things with best intentions, but fairly blind. How a certain thing is done in a particular market. The nuances of the tennis players in that market, the nuances of the influencers we want to use to market our product. So we are always pivoting, I believe is the phrase. We pivot very regularly, but we would always have a plan before we did anything, but we're very ready and nimble to change that and sort of do and learn.
Yeah, there's lots of good focuses in this about agility and actually agile approaches. So pivoting, many SMEs, when we went into lockdown and all of the issues about COVID, many businesses pivoted and started producing things which were relevant to the situation there for PPE or gels for hand washing, etc., which I think came out of some of our gin distilleries, which was rather wonderful doing that one. So Hayley, from your point of view, a plan. What was interesting from what you said there is you've got almost like energy from the community as well, and it changes it.
Yeah.
Is that flex?
Well, controversially, I would say that we don't have that much of a plan. And I think partly that's because as a business person, I think my outlook is possibly quite different to a lot of business people, because I'm not really bothered about growth, and I'm not really bothered. It's a sort of think global, act local type thing. So we're thinking about what the global issues are that we'd somehow like to have a small hand in trying to solve, and then we act very locally. So then we look at, okay, so what solutions can we help to implement in the local community that would affect those global issues? And so we're very much operating on the basis that if I can pay my mortgage, and if I can pay Catherine her salary, and if we have enough money left over to buy the stock that we need and pay the rent, not really looking to make much money beyond that. I'm not driven by money. I'm not driven by a want to expand. I'm not driven, I don't want to franchise my business. People have asked me if I would like to franchise, I wouldn't. I don't want another branch. So I think also it's really important as a small business owner that there are lots of different types of business, and it doesn't have to be about growth, and it doesn't have to be about dominating global markets, and it doesn't have to be, it's okay to want to do something small and community based, and that can still be really successful, and that can still be really something special. And it's like with all parts of life and everything, we need all those things. We need the big businesses.
I would say you sounds like you've got a really solid plan though. You know exactly what you're doing and what you want. So that really is a plan.
Yeah, so I guess the plan is linked to the passion, and kind of I guess not particularly having, say, a financial plan or but I guess having a plan of what we want to achieve in perhaps less tangible goals as well, because we were also talking about that a bit earlier before we came in, and about these kind of tangible goals. And I think sometimes as a business, it's really nice to have a tangible goal, like, oh, we want to turn over X number of pounds, or we want to shift X number of stock items, or whatever that is. You can tell I don't think in those terms because I've got no idea. But I think so that they can be goals, but yeah, I guess you can also have these very intangible goals of, do you think we're reaching new people in the community with our message, or do you think we've managed to help by doing X, Y, or Z? Or so I think we mustn't forget that plans and goals can look very different depending on what your ethos is and what your business is.
Yeah, it's interesting, but as you say, having that sense of what you're about and what you're doing, and you could well be measuring, if you want to measure, the fact that you're reaching out to the community, and is the community more active and doing something more influence? So it's an influencing role as well, which is clearly one of the things we've got there. Okay.
One thing you might find is that because you're doing such a good job there, the community and the local community are trying to get you to grow or want you to grow. And there's something you might have to consider in the future, that you're going to need more staff because of the demand that you're creating.
Yeah.
Now I would see that as a good thing. That would be a good problem. But everybody's different. You may want to keep it as just the two of you, which is also, that isn't wrong either. But
okay. All right. So we touched a little bit further about money and about getting your finance sorted out. One of the big issues we've got at the moment for businesses, especially energy hungry businesses, is having your cash flow so you can cope with rising energy costs and other elements. Now, I'm just making a guess here, but I imagine in terms of energy costs, you scoop the pool, Rob, I imagine.
No, that's not very good, is it? No, but yes, I think with a sort of national construction firm and excavators and plants and our fuel bills and our offices, whilst we're trying to do as much as we possibly can, certain things like large excavators and large civil engineering equipment, you can't buy that run on electric at the moment, so you're forced down certain routes.
Yeah.
And office spaces like we're in today, they still need energy.
Yeah.
So we're trying our best, but yeah, it is a challenge, and there isn't really many options on the table, bluntly, at the moment to support that.
Yeah. Laura, is our energy costs a concern for you, or it's securing us cash flow in terms of your business? We might have lost a connection there, Laura, have we? Well, pause there.
Oh, can you hear me? There we go. I'm back.
Yeah, got you now.
So we have been hit by energy costs, not so much within our office, but within our factories. We can have hundreds of people working in factories that we use. So these aren't factories we own, but they're factories we use. That's increased our cost of goods. But also where we have our fabrics made out in Europe, that does take a lot of energy, and it means that our fabric prices some of them have doubled just in the past 12 months, which is pretty significant. So yeah, we've really noticed that. We've had to raise our prices to overcome that. Simple as that. And obviously we're a luxury brand, so our customer does have that disposable income available to cover those, but yeah, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah. And Sam, have you noticed, because of your locations around the world, different effects or similar effects from energy costs?
It's not biggest issue, it's more to do currency. About 70% of our trade is overseas. So
Covington pound.
Yeah, a lot of people that are based in the States, so it's costing a lot more to pay.
Yeah. So it's an interesting range of challenges as an SME that you face, which larger corporates basically they still have to deal with it, but they've got a greater resource to deal with it, and a lot of it falls down onto a limited number of people in SME, but it's absolutely crucial for keeping the business going. So, okay. So we've touched a little bit, particularly Laura, you're very clear about your market, your product, and the brand. So how important is it about knowing your market? Do you have a market in particular, or is it anybody who wants to buy a product? Anybody in particular? And how important is the brand identity, preserving the brand, promoting the brand? Do you want to start us off, Laura, on that one?
Yeah. Okay. So for us, as a operating in that apparel sector, brand is king. Like, we live and die on the saliency of our brand. And the reason for that is, obviously we've gone into a market that it's already been done. Making tennis apparel, that's been done for 150 years. So we needed to work really hard to position ourselves within a very unique space within the overall tennis market. And the way that we communicate our positioning and why we're unique is through our brand. It's through what we look like, how we behave, all that good stuff. So brand is particularly crucial for us, as a clothing brand in a cluttered market. Helps us stand out.
Excellent, great stuff. Sam, brand or market important to you?
One of the things when we set up our business was to understand what our target market was, and actually part of the reason for doing what we do in the end is that we're only targeting about 100 people or 100 organisations around the world. So you know exactly who they are, you know who runs them, you know the people through the network. So it's actually a very different marketing story for us. And that is, so brand actually isn't that important. The culture and the values of other brands are important, but the XCC as we supply them for the
What?
I think that the brand for us is very, very important, but it's the people behind it and the team. So when we set up Nationwide Engineering, that was to go away from principal contractor background that myself and business partner have grown up in, and we saw how sluggish and slow they got, and so we wanted to set up a far more dynamic construction company that could provide a better service to the client, and that was our sort of aim. And it's been something. Now for us, as we're growing so much, we're starting to become our competitors around these large corporates, and we're frantically trying to adopt the ethos that we set the business up with 10 years ago, and maintain that sort of SME mentality.
Okay, so keeping that going and keeping that way of working, so if we depend on people, we've touched it so many times. So let's talk a little bit about how do you get the right people and how you hang on to them. That competitive word. So pick up from our point on it. It's probably, I found, the hardest thing to do as growing a business is finding the good quality people. They are out there, but it's finding them and then attracting them across, and then keeping hold of them politely is not really the challenge. If you've got the good people, the right mindset, you're obviously looking after them, both their personal life and their wages, and they're enjoying working there and growing the team. That's great. And then you're working as a team, and you're all working together saying, how can we improve this? But it's finding those the right people. I've found is the hard part. Yeah. And the two people there, you've got to get on like house on fire, haven't you? Really?
Yeah. Luckily, I already knew Catherine, and we go to the same gym. And I had opened the shop, and I was on my own initially. And she'd been shopping in the shop, and then she said, if you're looking for anyone else to work in the shop with you, then I'd be really interested. So I already knew that we got on, and I already knew that she was passionate about sustainability and zero waste shopping. So that was an easy one for me. But I think that's part of what encourages me to keep the business small, actually, is when you know that you're going to be working in such close proximity with someone, you want to get on. And my husband always jokes, because he always says to me, I can't believe that you've actually managed to find someone that you get on really well with to work with, because I don't know what he means by that, but he always says that. So
and neither do we.
It's definitely important to get on with the people that you're working with.
And Sam, you've got people distributed around the world, and some people you work closely with, some people you have a transactional relationship with, maybe.
Fortunately, so far, everybody that we've employed has been people, one or two that we've worked with for the past 15 years. So either
great.
through
Nice.
other businesses I've had. So again, having that relationship, so they want to come with you on the next journey has been quite good.
Yeah.
Starting at the point now we are Orlando next week interviewing some people, so we start to take a bit more of a gamble. But I think it's getting to understand the person when you're talking to them and understanding what they're looking for and trying to make sure they're the right person for your team.
Okay, we're just going to talk. Do you want to?
I was only going to say that's where the brand works for us, because we have people then. It's great when they're coming to you. They want to get involved in the brand.
Yeah, that's
so that is also a powerful.
Yeah.
When they're applying to you and saying we'd like to come work for you.
Yeah.
That's a really good. You sort of know you're doing something really good then.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's great idea. Yeah. So, beginning to get the end of our discussion, and thank you very much indeed for everybody's contribution so far. So, I just want to see, without giving any commercial steps away or secrets away, one of the bits about a leader is thinking ahead towards what's going to happen next or next steps. So, have you got any ideas about next steps? Just want to check. Laura, are you still online? Can we still reach you?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So, next step, Laura.
Yeah, so good question. We're scaling, so we're a fast scaling company, and at the moment we are right in the middle of our global growth strategy, which is where we are essentially ticking key markets off our list that we want to enter and occupy. And the big picture is that by 2025 we want to be the world's leading luxury tennis apparel brand for women. So we've got a hit list of markets that we know that we need to be active and successful in before we can sort of reach that velocity and that turnover. So yeah, we're on that path at the moment, just taking it market by market.
That's one we're off for 2025. What about you, Hayley?
So for me, it's about keeping the shop operating efficiently and busy and running, but now actually focusing on a community group that I founded called Sustainable Marlborough, and delivering some carbon literacy training sessions and delivering useful, practical events and workshops for the community. So having the shop up and running means that I now have a bit more headspace to focus on other things that will work in tandem with the shop.